right. So, Eben Britton, welcome to the Deep Life.
Thanks, bro. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you. I'm really excited. I feel like this has been a little while coming, and I've been looking forward to it for a while.
Same.
You're you're someone I've definitely had an eye on for quite some time, which has been really cool. And kind of what I want to dive into is that the opportunity to kind of watch your journey and see how you've progressed. Or I don't want to necessarily put words in your mouth, but have you kind of like come into your own and become this essentially new version of yourself, which is awesome.
Thanks, dude.
But
When did you first come across me? Do you remember?
I was trying to think of that earlier while I was kind of
Uh-huh.
preparing for this a little bit. I can't remember if it was Instagram or if I came across the podcast, but it was in the what was it, the Caveman Poet Society days?
Yeah. I was gonna
Yeah,
say, I think it was before hotboxing and all that.
yeah, definitely. So I remember, like, so I either came across your podcast, your Instagram page, or found the podcast, and I was like, oh, like the name sounded familiar. I'm like, I think I know who that guy is, and I started listening, and it's like, okay, this resonates. There's something really cool going on, and I feel like we
Love
do
that,
have a
dude.
lot in common. So I've been,
Yeah, for sure.
it's
I
it's
would
like,
agree.
mhm. so watching you, I guess from then, from whenever that, when were you doing that podcast? Like,
I think that was like 2015,
okay,
2016.
yeah, that sounds about.
2015, 2016, maybe into 2017, and then around 2018, I think I met Mike Tyson and started going down that rabbit hole of Tyson
Mhm.
Ranch and his cannabis company. And then out of that sprung hotboxing,
Yeah,
doing the podcast with Mike, which is just a whole other thing. But
I can't even imagine.
um, so I came out of the NFL in 2014 and moved back to LA early 2015, started settling in middle of the year 2015. I had met some guys, some ex-NFL guys, doing this cannabis advocacy circuit. Kyle Turley and Nate Jackson and Ricky Williams and Jim McMahon, and just started speaking about cannabis as medicine and what cannabis had done for me during my football career.
Mhm.
And one of those guys, Nate Jackson, him and I became really close, and he lived in Venice. And I said to him one day, I said, "Hey man, why don't we start a podcast?" He had been out of the league a handful of years, maybe 5 or 6, honestly,
Mhm.
about as long as I had been in, because I met him going into my rookie year. He was sort of waiting to get signed. We had the same financial advisor,
Okay.
and we reconnected after football when I was done, when I was coming out. And we were doing all this cannabis advocacy, speaking around the country at these conferences and Harvard and UCLA, and talking about cannabis as medicine for football players. And he was very encouraging for me, and starting to look behind the curtain at
Mhm.
what's going on. Like, who am I outside of football?
It's a big question.
Yeah, and he had been on that journey for a little while, and he really encouraged me in that. And he had written a New York Times best-selling book that I highly recommend called Slow Getting Up.
Okay.
He played 6 years as a tight end for the Broncos, and it's a fucking great book on football. Really such an incredible book, and I highly recommend it to anybody who's interested in seeing what it's really like in that world. And so he had been developing himself as an artist, and I've always felt underneath the football pads there was an artist under here. He was very encouraging for me in that, and just starting to look behind the curtain, starting to go like, who am I? Who am
Mhm.
I beyond this game? Because when I came out of it, it was this slow descent into the realization of, I don't know how to operate. I'm completely dysfunctional outside of without this cloak of being this professional athlete over me,
Yeah.
and how that impacted every relationship I had and all the communication I had with everyone in my life and my relationships, period. You know, it was so, I hadn't taken into account, of course, because who does, who can? You don't really take into account the impact that your identity, whether you are aware of it or not,
Hmm.
has on your life, your relationships, how you relate to the world around you. And for me, I went to University of Arizona, majored in creative writing, always thought I would be a writer when I was done playing football. And even with that idea in my head, that undercurrent
Hmm.
lurking beneath my football career, even with that, I came out of football and I had no fucking idea how to be, who I was, what I was interested in, what I wanted to do with my life, my purpose, what I liked. You know,
Hmm. Yeah.
everything I had done for so long was to get ready for football or to prove that I was good enough or to show that I could do it or that I was tough enough. Every decision I had made for so long, for 28 years of my life, had been basically to prove to the world that I was good enough, strong enough, tough enough,
Hmm.
scary enough to be
Yeah.
there, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
And when that filter, that lens was taken off my worldview, all of a sudden I'm faced with this opportunity to see who I am underneath all of that stuff. And Nate was the first guy that I connected with who really got that and he really understood that. And so I had a radio show in Jacksonville called The Number 73 on NPR, which was really dope. I got to know the music director there and I'd put together playlists of music, which I've always loved doing. And I'd splice in readings of books and excerpts and poetry, and it was called The Number 73. It was a late night show on NPR, and I love the medium. I just
Yeah.
love the medium of using my voice. I was always good in interviews. I was always the guy they picked after the games to give a soundbite or do an interview with reporters, and so I always loved it. And so podcasts at that time, this is like 2015, there were a handful of them. It
Hmm.
wasn't anything like it was today. I mean,
Yeah.
there's like Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, maybe. And
Yeah.
then these podcasts were just starting to bubble up. And I said to Nate, I said, hey, man, we should start a podcast and start talking about having this conversation of life after sports. And so Nate knew a guy, our buddy Jed, his good friend Jed, who became my good friend, Gerard Bauer, who is the sound master. He had all
That's
the equipment, the microphones. He's a master musician, incredible dude. And we started recording it in Jed's little studio in his apartment or in his house in Mar Vista. And it was an incredible outlet, you know? It was an incredible outlet to start having these conversations. We bring on guests occasionally. And then a lot of times it would just be Nate and I kind of riffing on our experience playing football or some crazy story that happened. And um, but that was really podcasting. I always thought to myself when I was still playing and have those moments sitting in the locker room, I'd have a dip in, I'd be on a tablet or two of Adderall, and
Mhm.
we'd just be sitting in the locker room and having these great conversations. And I thought to myself, when I'm done playing, I want to have a job where I get to talk to people for a living.
Mhm.
And podcasting just organically became the thing that
Yeah,
I found myself doing. It just felt so natural, you
it
know, and
makes sense.
it felt really therapeutic and it felt like something that I could be of service, because I could share my experience. And I know that feeling of when, you know, you're in the darkness, or you're in the shit, and you feel like there's no way to possibly see to the other side. And then you hear somebody share about they're going through something similar, or have gone through something similar, or 10 years ago they were in the same place as you and they've made their way to the other side of it. And it's so inspiring and helpful to hear that as a human, that you're not alone in your struggles. Because none of us are alone, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
No matter how fucking dark or difficult it seems, man, somebody's been here before and they found their way to the other side. And if they found their way to the other side, you can too. And knowing that is really powerful and important. So that was really, I would say that was the beginning of starting to peel back the layers of the onion of going, what's going on here, man? What is life after football? And took a lot of interesting turns, man. And there was a lot of fucking really uncomfortable shit. It continues to be really uncomfortable. And it's the only way to be. It's the only way to be, you know. I've been listening to a lot of Bob Proctor lately. And because yet again, here I am, I'm 36, almost 10 years from leaving football now. Shed so many skins. You know, you mentioned before we started, when we were talking about what we wanted to talk about on this podcast, talking about transformation and change.
Yeah.
And this change is the only constant. When you really
Yep.
when you really wake up, you go, oh yeah, change is the only constant. And if we're not changing, we're getting stuck. And if you're getting stuck, that's a little death, man. You know, that's the death in one sense. And we experience thousands of deaths throughout our lifetime. Death of selves, death of a career, death of old ideas. And it's this interesting preparation, you know, for the ultimate leaving the body and the soul going back to source, whatever you want to believe there. But when you're really living this thing well, I've found, for me, it's the least amount of resistance I can be in to the change, to the little deaths that are constantly arising in me. You know, here I am, I'm getting ready to move to a new place after spending pretty much my whole life in California, other than the first 10 years of my life. I was born in New York City, lived there till I was 10. Mom moved my brother and I here to LA. California's really been home for a long time, and we were talking about it earlier, but through COVID, whatever it was, I mean, it could have been COVID, it could have just been the time, it could have been what was revealed about the place, it could be the density, all of it, whatever it is, the message has been, the chapter of my life of living here has come to an end. That doesn't mean I'll never be here again. I can't say that. I've learned to never say never, because God knows.
Yeah.
You know, we say, oh, I'm never going back, and then you're there again.
That's
2 weeks
the
later.
one place I said I'd never be is where I am right now.
Exactly, dude. So we learn those lessons. Like, I have no idea, but for the moment, something new is necessary. Something new is the next chapter, the next landmark in my soul's and my spirit's journey through life, you know? And all the work I've done over the last 10 years or so, the yoga, the meditation, the losing the physical, the mental, the emotional weight, baggage, the plant medicine, the self-study, all of it has provided me with impeccable tools for learning how to let go over and over again, man.
Yeah.
You know, the moment I feel myself holding on, struggling, I go, Eb, you know the answer, bro. Just gotta let go.
Yeah.
Just let it go. Take a breath, get back to center. All I can do is keep coming to center, man. All I can do is keep myself centered and anchored right here and where my feet are. That way I can control what I can control. I can't control all this stuff out here. And I don't want to be at the whim and whimsy of all the shit going on outside of me.
Yeah.
You know, we get in our hyper materialist paradigm that many of us exist in, where the outside world is happening and we're trying to find our way through it all or not get totally derailed by what's happened in front of us. You know, the truth of it is we have control over that. We have control over how we respond to everything that comes into contact, everything that we come into contact with in our lives. So, however, the process by which we allow ourselves the opportunity to do something that's a response and not a reaction to our life is we have to find tools, develop tools, practice exercises that keep us centered and anchored in here.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel really blessed that I've gotten really good at that over the last 10 years. And it's been it's been the deep discipline of my life to do this,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah.
And I know it's working because this last year, these last couple of years, man, I've been through some life shit that could have totally fucking sent me into destruction, complete destruction. You know, the old tools of alcohol, strip clubs,
Mm-hmm.
bars, food, overconsumption, being a wrecking ball, you know. That was how I used to manage the difficulties. I just turn into a wrecking ball and say, okay, yeah, I'll show you. And I'd go make a mess of things.
Yeah.
You know?
Leave your mark.
Yeah. And so learning how not to do that, learning how to just take my hands off the wheel and literally the art of non-reaction, the art of
Mm-hmm.
creating space so that you can see and then you can make decisions. But so going back to Bob Proctor, you know, we all exist. We're all living through our paradigms, our personal paradigms, or I like to call it your subconscious belief matrix. It's the same thing. It's essentially everything we've ever been through in our lives that creates a belief that lives in our subconscious that then colors our perception of reality. And the only way to rewrite that code, rewrite that programming, is to first become aware of it and then to practice different things. So he uses this incredible word called praxis. Praxis is essentially your belief and behavioral integration, the integration of your paradigm and your behaviors. And your paradigm, he says, it's like a thermostat. It's the reason why people can go on a diet, but they don't fix the underlying issues, whatever that might be. And then they diet for a month, it works great, but as soon as the diet's over, the program's done, they put on 20 pounds, they put 20 pounds back on, they go right back to their old eating habits because they didn't change the underlying issue of not feeling good enough or feeling unworthy, the self-worth issues, whatever it might be that's underneath the relationship
Mm-hmm.
with food.
Yeah.
You know that. And so for me, it's been changing my paradigm has come through deep self-study, which has happened through therapy, 12-step programs, essentially group therapy, plant medicine, meditation, yoga, you know, and a whole lot of podcasting,
Mm-hmm.
honestly.
Yeah. It is a great way to just get things out and really talk through concepts and ideas and
Yeah, well, you
find
get
those
to
stories that are running your life.
exactly, dude. And for me, a big learning experience too was doing Mike Tyson's podcast, starting that podcast with Mike and then co-hosting it and every day having to go in there and just put my ego on the top shelf, just
Hmm.
saying, this isn't about me, no one's
Yeah.
here to hear me talk. You got Mike Tyson in the room. Everybody wants to see and hear Mike. So what can I do? What's my role here as the facilitator of this space for something to emerge? Let me be in that. Let me be really good at that. I got to learn a lot about myself through that process because that voice, that inner dialogue that's happening constantly would emerge and it would have all sorts of shit to say. And I get to look at it and I go, oh, okay, interesting. That's where we're at today. Or that's what you think. That's what you believe. So anyway, lately I've been it's constant, it's a constant rewriting of the programming. And the programming that got me to the highest level of the sport that I loved more than anything growing up was not the programming that was going to serve me in life after.
Hmm.
So I had to fucking do a lot of work and it's fucking really uncomfortable. And when you become aware and you recognize that the old way is no longer serving you and you have to do something different, life gets uncomfortable because the unknown is really uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to constantly be going, I'm going to step into the unknown again.
Yeah.
It's easy and comfortable to be in the known always, to spend
Yeah.
your whole
Even when it
life in the known.
sucks, even
Yeah.
when the known is miserable, you know it. So you
Yeah,
feel somewhat safe or comfortable there.
exactly. That's why we spend so much time miserable in our lives because
Yeah.
we're just like, okay, yeah, I'm comfortable. Is it what I want? No, but I know it. It's comfortable. It's safe. I don't have to grow. Okay, I'll stay here.
Yep. Yeah. That's why I think watching you and your story has been so inspirational. And I know I'm not the only one that resonates with it. Obviously, like people seem to be really interested and getting a lot from listening to you and just how open you are to share all these things. And it's not just the highlight reel. Like you're putting some shit out there and being really honest and truthful.
I love
And it
that, dude.
seems like, and I'm like listening to you talk now, like it seems like each one of these situations you found yourself in was just setting you up for the next one. And it was like you got to the point over the last 10 years, but even everything, like you said, like the vehicle that got you there wasn't what was going to keep you going, but it wasn't wrong. Like
Yeah.
you have that part of you is still there. It's like this transcend and include aspect of growth.
Yes.
So you have all of
Yes.
that, then you have everything you've been through over the last 10 years. So that over the past, year, you said as you're going through some shit, you're equipped with all these other tools. And it like I don't know if it seems like it in the moment, but it almost sounds like each step is inevitable
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there's something that we need to gain from it. And I feel like that's what it's been like in my life. I've noticed that
Right.
it almost seems like when I stop trying to control it, when I stop, I'm like that little kid in the back seat with the steering wheel who thinks he's driving the car. And it's like when I do let go and just surrender and take it all in, I realize like everything is perfect and everything has led to right here, which is such an amazing feeling and perspective. I find it so empowering.
Absolutely, dude. You hit it on the head. Transcend and include.
Yeah.
That's really important because I think for a lot of us, myself included, there are moments along the path. For me, there was a definite there was an aspect or there was a necessary thing of having to kill the football guy.
Mm-hmm.
However, and there was a lot of shame. I had a lot of shame and a lot of guilt about that guy for a long time. And then what I realized, even in the last few years, because I completely cleaned myself of that persona, that version of myself. And then I realized it might have been honestly in the last couple years, maybe even more recent than that, where I realized how much that guy is a part of me and how important that guy, aspects of that warrior are to who I am today. And so
Yeah.
it is totally what you said. It's that transcend and include. Because while I think it can be a necessary part of the journey to when we shed those skins to completely clear out any residue of that self, that being from your newly birthed state, version, whatever you want to call it, it is important to then go back and honor that. Like for me, this is what it is. This is making me, that word in particular, you know, over the last, this has happened in the last 8 months or so for me, where I realized that I haven't honored what football Eb did.
Mm-hmm.
Like I've acknowledged it, I've accepted it, I've reconciled it, but I haven't honored it. And for me, that was a big shift, to have this sense of honoring what young Eb, young warrior football Eb, went through, put himself through, did, accomplished. Because man, I came out of football, dude. I remember this morning I woke up, we had just bought a house here down in North Hollywood area, beautiful home. I've got, on paper, it's all there, man. It's all
Yeah.
good. And I remember waking up one morning, I was probably 28, and I truly thought to myself, what the fuck have I done with my life? Like, I've done nothing with my life. I've wasted 28 years. God, how? What? How did I get here?
Mm.
That was a very true feeling. And there was truth in that. However, it wasn't complete,
Yeah.
wasn't complete because yes, I am so much more. I'm infinitely more than just a football player. And yet I needed to come all the way through the other side to go, I honor, respect, appreciate, and I'm so grateful for the journey that I went on for those first 28 years of my life.
Yeah. That's so
Um,
powerful.
yeah, dude. And the honoring aspect was just like, that was the missing thing for me.
Mm.
Because, I had gotten to this point where I'd kind of thrown myself into this like wellness industry. It's like wellness world.
Yep.
And I was sort of found myself comparing myself with these wellness influencers, people
Yeah.
going, wait, why? How come? Why not me? Why them? Why me? How? First of all that shit is a total illusion. That's all your mind, ego bullshit. This old thing from being a little kid, that feeling like you're not enough, feeling like you're not worthy, you're not good enough, you're not tough enough. Okay. And then I had to honor this football thing. I'm like, dude, you were this fucking warrior here, man, who did this incredible thing that
Yeah.
so few people on the planet have ever had the chance to experience. You did
Yeah.
it.
And so many try.
Yeah, and like so many guys dream of playing in the NFL,
Yep.
and I did it for 6 years at a high level and been through the meat grinder with injuries and all the stuff. And I made it out the other side. And it's like, when I came to that realization of honoring that, it filled that hole in, of going, wait, what about? And it was like, enough of that.
Mm-hmm.
That's nonsense, you know. But I had felt like I had disconnected too much from that part of me.
Yeah. I get that.
you know?
Yep. And it's also like, have you thought about the version of you that needed to disconnect and
Hmm.
honoring that part of you too?
I
There's
love that, dude.
there's that version of you that like really needed to like start forge a new path and do something completely different.
Uh-huh.
And like you need both of those guys to be the guy that you are now.
Absolutely, dude. I love that. I love that perspective. I'm gonna keep that one.
Yeah.
That fills in the
There's no
picture a little
mistakes.
more.
I like it.
Well, that's one thing I heard this on another podcast. The guy said, "Do you have any regrets, or what are your regrets?" And I really don't have any regrets about anything. The only regret I have now, which I get to make up for every day, is that I could have I wish I had been a little more mindful, because I we all of us, until we get to that point where we become aware, we wake up, and then you have many awakenings
Hmm.
from that point. But you have that first initial, and
Yeah.
maybe not.
You break the seal.
Yeah, maybe it's all a slow trickle.
Yeah.
Maybe it's these bursting, explosive epiphanies of realization, and maybe it's both. Um, the only thing if I had a regret, the only thing it would be was that I haven't spent more time of my life mindfully aware and present. I
Yeah.
spent a lot of time out here, and I think that's the lesson of getting older too. Getting older and your spiritual growth, and that's why they always say youth is wasted on the young. We don't even know. We're like running around like a fucking tornado
Yeah.
until we're 35, you
Yeah.
know? And then you wake up and you go, "Oh, that was that feeling of waking up at 28 and going, man, I've done nothing with my life." That's what that feeling was.
Hmm.
It was like, "Oh my God, was I asleep the whole time?"
Parenting can be stressful and even overwhelming, especially if you have an overly sensitive child. What if there was a way to better understand, guide, and nurture your child's unique sensitivity and emotional intelligence to set them up for success on their developmental journey? Rooted Rhythm's signature course, Tuned In, offers a transformational process for parents of highly sensitive, super feeling, wise, and empathetic children. Dan and I don't have children of our own, but we were both highly sensitive children growing up. And we know firsthand how difficult it can be to feel and process emotions in a productive and constructive way at such a young age. Recently, having gone through the Tuned In course, we both took away so much valuable information and practical tools we could utilize to reparent ourselves and to understand how to better use our sensitive nature to deepen our connection to ourselves as well as the world around us. The Tuned In course teaches parents concrete skills to meet their sensitive kids' needs in moments of intensity, increases their ability to connect deeply with their children, and supports a process of inner healing to shift how they relate to parenting. Each module offers unique grounding and embodiment meditations, lectures full of both evidence-based and practical content, and supplementary exercises to support in the implementation of new skills. Parents who have taken this course report walking away from the experience feeling relaxed in their being and confident to parent their children in a way that both feels most true to them as a parent, as well as most supportive for their children. If this resonates with you as a parent or simply for yourself, we're excited to offer our listeners $100 off of this transformational course. Click the link in our show notes, which goes directly to the Rooted Rhythm Tuned In course website, and enter the discount code DEEPLIFE, all one word, to receive $100 off of the Tuned In course.
And now we get to, I haven't drank alcohol in a few years now. That's been a good thing. But now every day I wake up, I want it to be the best day I can possibly make it. And I
What more
want
could
to,
you ask for?
Yeah, man. I mean, like life is so deep and so miraculous. I don't want to miss a moment of it. I want to do it the best I can. I want to be and for me, doing it the best I can means being the most present I can possibly be.
Yeah, that's been huge for me in the last. It's really like the last few months, maybe the last like 6 months. I've really been trying to lean into just like how present can I be? How aware can I be of how I'm showing up? Really,
Uh-huh.
because
Yeah.
I think for a long time, I tended to be very in my head and very like I would spiral into all these stories and all this negativity. And there's things I want to be, and there's a version of myself who I know I want to be, and then I would allow myself to not be him,
Uh-huh.
and I wouldn't even pay attention to it. And it's really what you're saying. It's like I want to make the most of each day, and I want to really focus on making sure I'm being that version of myself as
Yeah.
often as possible,
Yeah.
and really just checking in on like where is my awareness? Who am I being right now? How am I treating people?
Yes. And this is where this thing comes in of changing your paradigm and changing your life. Because
Mm-hmm.
we all come from an unconscious paradigm. Our programming was input by people who had no idea what they were doing. And we haven't known what we were doing until you wake up and then all of a sudden you become aware of like every word that I speak, every thought that I give attention to. Because once you implement a deep life discipline, you make your life a ritual. Dan,
Mm-hmm.
like I know you
Yeah,
do. You've
for
got
sure.
your movement, you've got your mindfulness practices, you've got all the stuff you're doing to bring yourself right here, to snap to center.
Yep.
And that momentum, it builds and it builds and it builds. And so you get to a point where most days, most time is spent in a pretty positive mode.
Yes.
However, we're human. And so things come up, things happen, you step in dog shit. You know, somebody fucking backs into your car and blows out your light, or something happens all the time. Even for me this morning, Tuesday mornings, we go to 6 a.m. yoga. I don't know what it was. Things were kind of moving a little slowly. My lady was a little bit slow getting out of bed. Then the dog had to go out. And I just wanted to get to yoga because I wanted to get my spot. And I got annoyed. You know?
Mm-hmm.
And in the past, that annoyance, that feeling of annoyance would turn into resentments towards the people around me and going, what the fuck, man? Now we're late to yoga, yada, 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 yada. And I found myself, and luckily I got to be in yoga. So I got to sort of process these emotions by myself in the space of my mind and heart, you know? But by the time I got to the yoga studio and I'm sitting there and I'm feeling this stuff, and here's where the practice, the practice, practicing the new behaviors changes the paradigm. Because I got to go, okay, I'm feeling all this. It's not about her. It's not about the dog. Nothing even happened
Mm-hmm.
here. This is just a feeling. This is just an emotion that arose because we've got all sorts of life stuff going on. This sent me into this helpless hole. And then I got to just make a new decision about it rather than letting it spew onto these people and ruining the whole day.
Yeah.
You know, and I've talked to guys who are like, man, I do my meditation, I do my breath work, I get my workout in. I'll be, you know, walking through the park walking on sunshine, and all of a sudden that one negative thought comes in and it ruins my whole day. And why do we expect that the negative thoughts are never going to come again? They're going to happen, dude.
Right.
We've got darkness and light in here. We've
Yeah.
got greatness and we've got darkness in here, dude. That's who we are. It's yin and yang. It's what we're made of. It's
They
the
serve a
polarity.
purpose.
Absolutely. And so, and that's the dojo that we're in now, dude.
Yeah.
That's the fucking, you know, that's the
game.
fucking wax on, wax off. That's the game. Do we feed the negative thought? Do we feed the negative emotions, the negative feelings, and let that take over and become the moment? Or do we just let it pass and then choose differently, choose the new paradigm, choose the new behavior? And then you build momentum, you keep that momentum building, you keep it building, man. And you get a little bit stronger, you get a little bit more resilient to the negativity. And then one day it's like, dude, here we are. It's raining. All right, it's raining.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just raining. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of like the rain.
Yeah.
I kind of
when you
like the
stop telling
darkness.
yourself it's bad, it's not bad at all.
And that takes practice. That's where the fucking rubber meets the road of the spiritual journey happens. Because we got so many, it drives me kind of insane, honestly. It drives me insane. These people on Instagram or wherever, and it's just all love and light and rainbows and fucking champagne flutes, and it's all love. You snap your fingers and the demons go. It's like, that's not been my experience, dude. It's a constant, it's Aikido, it's judo, dude. It's a wrestling match. It's jujitsu. It's like the shit comes, you get put in a fucking headlock. You got to get yourself out of it. How much grace, how much peace do you have with yourself when you're moving through those difficult, uncomfortable, dark moments? Because then it evaporates. Then you're freed from the Chinese finger trap. You know, rather than resisting it and those things pulling your fingers out of the knuckles, you just you surrender to it. You go in and you free yourself from the trap. You know?
Yeah, it's a perfect analogy.
And for me, like, that's where, like I said, that's where the rubber meets the road. That's where all of this stuff starts to matter, because you get into a great discipline, great routine, you have all these practices, you do them daily, and then you have to recognize that your humanity is still going to show up, dude. Your humanity is always going to be there. So then what? When that part of yourself that you think is ugly or not good enough or not cool or not something you want to share with the world, when that part of yourself arises, or when that shade comes into your perception, what are you going to be like then? Because that's really what it's about. It's about how deep is your allowance and your acceptance of your own humanity. Because that's the depth by which you allow and accept others to be human.
Yeah.
And then we actually get somewhere. Then we're actually headed towards the light beings that everybody says we're destined to be.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. If you're not able to accept all parts of yourself, how are you going to accept other people as themselves?
Exactly.
Yeah. The what was I going to say? I just had something I wanted to. You've said so much. There's so much that you've said that I want to unpack. Excuse me, but I love what you said. Like,
bro.
yeah, I love you said, like it's like a wrestling match, and there's this sort of give and take, and then eventually, like, you find yourself in a headlock, and it's like, are you gonna beat yourself up over getting caught and getting in a headlock, or can you just sort of honor the experience and focus on how you're going to get out? Because there's no need for the guilt and the shame and kind of beating yourself up.
That's when you get choked out.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
When you're like,
you're not helping yourself at all. Yeah, you're just adding more stress to the situation.
Then you get choked out.
Yeah. But I found it so helpful to try to, like, separate. There's like the thing that happens, and then there's my story about the thing that happens. And it's
Big.
like one of them is real and one of them isn't.
Yeah.
Can I let
big.
go of the story and just recognize that, okay, like this is what is. What do I do next? What's the next step? What's the next, how do I treat this situation?
Yes.
But
And
so much,
surrendering.
yeah. Yeah.
You know, surrendering. Like, tap out, dude. There's another play. You know,
Yep.
there's another round. There's infinite more rounds and more plays and more opportunities. And that surrendering, I think, is to keep going with the martial arts, the wrestling or the jujitsu analogy here. You know, you get yourself into a headlock and they've got you. You got caught. Tap out, dude.
Yeah.
That's the surrendering to what is rather than your story, you know? Like you said, you're going to fight and rage against the headlock and pass out? Or do you just tap out? You go, okay, yep, you know what? Like for me, the last year and a half has been about getting my finances in order for myself, not with a fucking CPA, not with a financial advisor, not with somebody else handling all my shit, but for me, so that I can understand it, so I can have hands-on experience about how to have a relationship with money. You know, I come from a family, nobody really knew how to have money. And I come into tons and tons of money and I don't know what to do with it. When I was 21 years old, you know, and I got drafted in the NFL. I come into all this money and I don't have the consciousness to hold it because it's like, I don't know what to do with this shit, you know? And I had to literally start from scratch. Coming out of football, had enough money to buy us a house, which God bless her, my ex-wife took in the divorce settlement, which is great. I'm happy for that. I said yes to that. I wanted her to have that with my daughter, you know, with our daughter. And but other than that, dude, I had to start from scratch. I had to start over. Money. I didn't know how to make it, didn't know how to handle it, didn't know how to save it, didn't know how to invest it, none of this shit. You know, and the last year and a half in particular has been really about me learning how to do that myself. And I had to surrender because I was walking around going, I know what to do with money. I know what to do, you know, and meanwhile, you know, bills are going past due and I'm getting phone calls from the bank and whoever else and all of this shit. And I'm like, yeah, inside holding on. I'm going to not get choked out, you know, and killing myself. And then eventually I just had to go, okay, I tapped, dude. I surrender. I need help. I need help. I don't know the first thing to do. Okay, here we go, Eb. And then the people come into your life. The people come into your life who can be of assistance, that can be of service to you in where you're at. And that's what it's been. And I go, okay, I'm willing to ask for help. First, you got to be willing to ask for help.
Yeah.
You know? And then you got to be, go ahead.
I was just, did you think the issue was that you weren't like willing to admit that you didn't know?
Totally, dude.
Or even like look at it, maybe? You weren't willing to look at the part of you that didn't know?
First it was, I don't even want to look at that. I don't even want to look at the credit card bill, bro.
Yeah.
Get that away
that.
from me. Yeah. I'm not even going to pay the credit card bill because I don't want to look at it. You know?
Yeah.
And then it's like 3 months past due, and I'm like, oh, I want to just run and hide, and you know, and all it takes is one phone call. Hey, I need to pay my credit card. Oh, yes, sir. Absolutely. Would love to help you with that. And you're like, what? Oh, I'm not a bad person or a fuck up or, you know?
Yeah, of course. I think, that absolutely resonates.
But totally, it was, I don't even want to look at it. Then it was like, what was the next thing you said? I can't accept that I don't know how to do this. I refuse to accept that I don't know how to do this. You know?
Yeah.
And so it took me a while to break through that, to just surrender. you know, because really the breaking through is just surrendering to what is rather than all the stories, all my stories about it.
Yeah.
Like you said, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It's like this idea of like lying to yourself to maintain, like you were saying before, like that comfort of knowing rather than what would actually be comfort of getting out of the situation. But it's like that familiarity of, okay, like, yeah, like I've not paid bills before. I know this feeling. I've been there. I can
Oh,
do it. Fuck
that
yeah.
is such a trip, man.
Yeah.
The fear that you hold on to about what the unknown is so much more of a burden than just doing the thing and stepping through the portal into the unknown.
Yeah.
You know, and we've all done that in whatever situation. You know, we've all done that where we spend months, years walking around a situation trying to figure out how to do it or
Mhm.
what we've got to do or what's the right move or the right words to say. And you're living under this burden of belief that the world's going to come to an end if you do it. And then all of a sudden you have the realization, I just need to do it. I just have to do this thing, have the conversation, say it, do it, whatever it is. I just have to do it, say it. It's never going to get any easier. And then you do it and you say it, do it or you say it. And the response is, okay, or great
Yeah.
job.
Yeah.
And you go, what the fuck was I doing?
But it always feels so good. Like you feel so light when a
So
thing like
light,
that.
dude.
Like it's like this huge burden where all you've been doing is perpetuating the bullshit.
Yes,
And it's like
exactly.
it's like we have the story that it's like gonna be this terrible thing. And then like you said, when you actually bring it to light and someone's like, yeah, okay. And it's like it was nothing this whole time. We build it up into this
This
monster.
dragon.
Yeah,
It's the
absolutely.
dragon. We have to slay
Mhm.
this dragon. It's fucking fire
Yeah.
breathing. It's impossible, Dan.
Yep.
And then
Yeah.
you do it and it's like, oh my God, that's it. I would say all of these things that we're talking about, it's paying the bill. There's all sorts of things in the game we're in, right? There's
Yep.
all sorts of stuff. There's relationship stuff, there's money stuff, there's career stuff, there's all kinds of stuff. Family stuff, conversations, things to do that feel like these big insurmountable things. And it's all yet another analogy for the transformation, the evolution of self, right?
Yes.
Because we all have that thing inside that's going, okay, it's time to go on, move on to the next chapter, move to the new place, take the new job, step into the new paradigm. And how long are we going to hold on to the old? How long are we going to
Mhm.
hold on to, I can't do it, man, I can't. And then you just let go and you surrender and you're like, oh, this is freedom,
Yeah. It was
you
so
know?
easy.
This
Yeah.
is that, you know, and that's really the better we can get at that, the more our life is going to flow.
Yeah. Life is flow.
Exactly. It's
And it's like
constantly
we
flowing.
resist the flow. We cut ourselves off from life. We resist life so
Yeah,
that we can perpetuate these stories and this our idea of ourselves. Like, oh, it's like there's like one theme, like everything when it really boils down to just one thing, and it's just like the evolution of consciousness. It's just growth, and
yeah,
it's going with the flow of life. But it's like our ego convinces us that we have to do it.
hmm,
That it's like that it's not actually just happening. It's not just the flow, but like we're alone in the world, and that we need to go out and conquer, or we need to force
yeah,
our will onto the world.
yeah,
So then we build up this whole thing of like, okay, I'm gonna do the thing, and then it's like scary because there's this drag. All of a sudden, we created this dragon that we need
yeah.
to go fight, and it's like haunting us. when all
exactly.
that we actually had to do was realize there is no dragon and just kind of give into the flow and let life happen.
Exactly, dude.
And I think like so much of us, I feel like get so stuck and so hung up on maybe like who we think we're supposed to be or who everybody has told us we are,
Hmm.
who we've told ourselves we are, or who we want to be, and
Hmm.
we cut ourselves off from that voice that's like our heart telling us who we actually are.
Mm.
And I feel like it's always there, and we know, like you said before, like you were a football player, but underneath you always knew there was like an artist in there. Like there's an aspect
Uh-huh.
of us that's always calling to us, and I feel like there's this like gravitational pull in a direction, and when we
Yes.
resist that pull, we suffer.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. It's a good way to put it. It is like a gravitational pull. It's this movement. It's the river, you know?
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
just it's taking us there. And how long are we going to spend trying to swim in the opposite
Yep.
direction?
Yeah. Or just clinging to like
We're like,
the river bank or
yeah,
something.
clinging to the log. That's like,
Exhausted, and you can't hold anymore. It's like, what am I gonna do?
yeah.
It is like the more
Exactly, dude.
you let go, and it's so beautiful, and you can flow, and and that doesn't mean like you said before, like that doesn't mean there's not going to be bullshit and there's not going to be challenges and obstacles, but we don't need to resist them, and we don't need to build them up into something that they're not. We can just kind of face them and
Yeah.
experience them.
Well, it's interesting what you said about, I don't know if you asked the exact question, why do we do that?
Hmm.
Or why is that so hard for us? I would say everybody does that, man.
Yeah, I think so too.
Everyone in the West, at least, in
Yep.
Western civilization, in the Western paradigm, does that. And I would say it's many-fold the reasons why. We're fed what a successful life is
Hmm.
from the jump. So then many of us go about creating the successful life. We go to college, get a degree, get the job, make some money, get the house, get the partner, get married, have the kids, get the dog, picket fence, all that stuff.
Hmm.
And then all of a sudden we wake up one day and we go, whoa, what the fuck am I doing here? The Talking Heads song,
Yep. Yeah.
Once in a
Yep.
Lifetime.
Yes.
This is not my beautiful house. This is not my beautiful wife. And you're like, what happened, dude? I did it. This was the formula, bro. I was
Yep.
supposed to be good now, but
Yeah. I'm
I'm
supposed to be
not.
happy by now.
I'm not. Why? What's going on? And so a lot of it has to do with just our preconceived notions of what life is
Hmm.
that are all fucking these spun yarns of illusion that we've been fed through media, culture, whatever, you know,
Right.
all
Yeah.
the myriad forms that information gets downloaded into us, that gets transmitted into us, all the people around us who are living through that paradigm. There's a really powerful thing. I've talked to my mom about this recently. You know, I teach yoga. My mother's a yoga teacher. I've been doing yoga since I was 10. My mom's a master somatic body worker, healer, and we have a lot of conversations about teaching, yoga, neuroscience, addiction, dysfunction, psychology. A lot of our conversations have to do with this. And, you know, one of the things we talked about was when you go into a yoga class, and you could take this and and you know, pull out or open it up, blow it out into just about every interaction we have in our life. But when you go into a yoga class and you've got the yoga teacher and whatever the class is, isn't, might be, is one thing. However, you're getting a transmission from that teacher that is beyond the words, it's beyond the teaching, about their philosophy, their paradigm of life, their outlook of life. It gets transmitted to you through the energy exchange in that room. And that's the same in every conversation we have, every interaction we have with a teacher, a doctor, a parent, a friend, someone on the screen. All of it, we're getting a transmission of a paradigm, right? And that makes you feel a certain way.
Yeah.
It transmits an ideal or a philosophy or a vision of what life is, a perspective. It transmits a whole matrix of view into you. And until we become aware and we become conscious, we can't really discern what's somebody else's transmission and what's our own perspective.
Yep.
You know?
Yeah.
And so we find ourselves inevitably, because it's all moving constantly, as you so eloquently put, Dan. It's all constantly moving and flowing. Life is flow. It's moving, it's evolving, it's changing, it's growing, it's shifting, it's expanding. The universe itself is ever expanding.
Yeah.
It continues to fucking expand and grow. Like right now, as we're speaking, it's just like bleeding out into the abyss.
Yeah. And accelerating, infinitely getting fat, like going faster and faster.
Exactly. So, you know, when you think about that in terms of your own life, it's really just about what we get hooked into or what we latch onto as far as what it is that we're doing here or what life is supposed to be, that becomes a problem. You know, children have no, you watch children play, move, they're just constantly moving. Like, kids can be assholes to each other in one moment, and then the next moment they're playing with each other again, or they just found a new toy or a new group. They just move and they don't fucking think about it. You know, it's only until we grow up or people start to call attention to like, hey, that dude's an asshole, or he hurt me, or I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to be resentful. I'm going to be mad at them, all this stuff. That toy was mine. I got to have that, et cetera, et cetera. And we just do that as we get older, too.
Yep.
That job was mine, man. That was my job. No, it wasn't, bro. That's a job. You did it really well, or you didn't. There were some things beyond your control. You got fired, or you got replaced, or whatever it is. Like, these are just our illusions, our storylines, our narratives about what's happening in front of us. It's not actually what's happening in front of us. You know, we take things really personally because we think things are ours, or we think we're entitled. We think a lot of things about everything.
Yeah. We think things are supposed to stay the same.
Yeah, we're just hooked. We want it to be the same. We want it to be, okay, yeah, this is working, man. This is working. Everything ends, bro.
Mm-hmm.
Everything comes to an end. That's sad, scary, and it's true. And if you get good with that, life becomes this really beautiful, open experience. Like every day, I'm not going to say it. I can't say it because I've done it before, and it's I share my mantras and then I have to get new mantras.
Okay, yeah. You keep
But
it.
I have a big mantra about that, the expansiveness of my life. I repeat that to myself because I, like many of us, come from a family paradigm that believes it's got to be this way, man. It's got to be this way. If it's not this pinpoint thing happening always, man, my life is fucked. No, it's not true. My life is this fucking grand, open, beautiful, infinite landscape.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and expanding.
Constantly. And it's endless. The opportunities are endless. And when one door closes, 2, 3 more are opening. That's the reality I live in.
Yep. It's like even just saying that or like holding that in mind, you feel so different, right?
Totally, man.
Like that like the openness to the expansiveness of your existence is so
Every
empowering.
every time I go into that feeling tone, I literally feel my intestines and my solar plexus go from this to this.
Mhm.
It's really powerful, especially as I make it more and more intentional. This happened like last week. I made this decision because I realized even now, it's like this constant excavation, studying of the self, constant. I
Yeah.
went, oh, where am I limiting myself? Where am I holding these limiting beliefs? Where am I living in an old paradigm that's no longer serving me? Oh man, I tend to get bogged down or locked into the idea that I need to be small. I need to keep my life small. I need to keep myself small because that's safe. That's okay. Don't let too many people see me. Don't get too big. Don't get too successful. And I went, okay, let's change that. Let's start rewriting that right now. My life is this massive, open, infinite landscape of possibility and opportunity. And this whole unraveling happens. It was like everything's like in a fist. Everything's just like open. There's blood flow. There's circulation. There's freedom. There's relaxation.
I love
And I
that.
think all of us can do that, like everybody has their own thing and it changes over time too, because eventually that belief will integrate into my subconscious and I'll be walking around with that belief. That's part of my paradigm because I practice it, I visualize it, I repeat it over and over again. I repeat it to myself and then it just gets ingrained. It gets programmed into the mainframe. And then there will be something else. There will be
Yep.
something else that I get to look at or that's inhibiting me in some way or that's kind of closing me off in a part of my life or whatever it might be. And so we just keep shifting. We keep shifting and growing and expanding. We transcend and include.
Yeah. And that's cool. Like you said, like once you become aware of what did you call it before, your subconscious belief matrix?
Yeah,
Like as we become aware of that, then we can start to recognize what are the beliefs that are creating my worldview. And then like something like that, when your worldview changes from something so like narrow and myopic and like kind of basically like survival based,
yes,
and you open up to something more expansive and more about abundance and thriving and being all that you
yeah,
can be in the world. And which is kind of like we owe it to the world to be that,
totally,
to be
dude.
the best version of ourselves, because the only way we can have the best version of our society is to have the best version of each one of us.
Exactly.
It's like when you were saying that, it kind of reminded me. I had sort of this realization where I kind of same kind of thing. I realized I was always playing small,
Mm.
and I'd have like the desire to do like big, great things.
Uh-huh.
And then I'd find myself almost like negotiating with myself to bring my dreams down to where I am rather than go the other way. And it was that like I almost like felt like it was narcissistic or
Right.
who am I to do this like big great thing? And I
I know
kind of
that voice
realized,
well, bro.
yeah, I realized it's the other way around. It's like, who am I to resist this big thing that's trying to be manifested through me and keep
Exactly.
it away from the world? Like I realized I've always had this I guess this desire. Like I feel like my purpose is to kind of create and bring into the world an abundance of health, wealth, love, joy, freedom, peace, and perfect expression for myself, my family, and my community, meaning like a global community. Like I want to
Uh,
spread love and health and wealth and joy and peace. And I want people to be themselves and be free. And I've always like, it was like an affirmation I'd say sometimes, or I'd write down sometimes. And then I was like, okay, well, like a little bit of that will be okay. I can maybe
uh-huh.
help somebody. And it's like, no, like this is my purpose on in this plane. is to like help people realize that they're abundant and that they can be unbelievably healthy and unbelievably rich and unbelievably happy and unbelievably free to be themselves. And that this whole time I've been resisting my purpose for some ego bullshit of like, oh, don't be seen, don't be seen, don't be seen.
Uh-huh.
And it's like I just kind of like my whole paradigm has changed to like I'm allowing these things to come through me. It's not me. I'm not doing it. There's nothing special about me, but there's this beautiful idea that wants to happen, and I'm gonna let it, and it can use me all at once.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the idea. Like I'm surrendering to that idea. I'm surrendering to life and to my purpose. And I feel like having a purpose and being like purpose driven by something bigger than myself is all of a sudden so empowering to me. Like it's changed the way I see everything.
Yeah, it's a big deal, dude. It's a big deal. And I love what you're saying, and it resonates with me deeply. And I think for men in particular, we need to really lock into our purpose. And I think it's exactly what you said. Your purpose should be a grand vision of how you are here to serve your gift to the world.
Hmm.
And then you surrender to life and you let life take you where that can best happen.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah. Yep.
I love it, man. It really resonates with me too. And that's very similar to where I've been and what I've been moving through in my own life.
Mm-hmm.
And exactly, man. Who are you? Who are we to play small, dude?
Yeah.
Who are
Bullshit.
you to resist the energy of life moving through you?
Yeah. And it's like everybody else has other things to do. So it's like if this idea wants to come through me, then I can take that up so that other people can bring other huge dreams into the world. And then there's
Exactly.
like this leveling up really, really fast for all
And
of
this,
us.
exactly. And this is the thing I wanted to say about this, that because this isn't the first time you've probably thought about this or written out your purpose or
Mm-hmm.
come into
Yeah, definitely not.
conflict or confrontation with this old paradigm in yourself. And it's been the same for me. And once again, going back to what we talked about earlier, we forget, man. We forget when life starts to really hit. You know, like you, me, everybody had a lot of shit going on in our lives, like a lot of real life shit to deal with.
Yep.
And when you get hit with all of that stuff, the family things, the life things, the transitions, the big overwhelming stuff, obstacles that we find ourselves in communion with, we forget. And a lot of people, man, my lady and I have talked about this a lot. When you're going through real life stuff, it becomes hard to dream. It
Yeah.
becomes hard to dream because you're just so bogged down and so exhausted by the minutia of the life happenings. And so it's really important as quickly as you can to get back on the horse of the dreaming and the envisioning of your life and what you want it to be. And reminding yourself, like, oh yeah, dude, we're not here to fucking play small. We're here to give our gift to the maximum. I've done the same thing, you know, and you get to reevaluate it too.
Yep.
Okay, we're super driven, we're super motivated, we're building the business, we're doing the stuff, it's fucking rocking and rolling. We got this thing set up, we got the channels, we got it organized, and then life happens. We gotta pull back, we got to settle in, we got to do this thing, we got to take care of so and so, we got to X over here, do this thing, manage our, you know, put the pieces back together on our life over here. And then all of a sudden you go, man, I haven't meditated in 2 months, or I haven't journaled. I haven't written out my mantra in 3 weeks. Man, I forgot I even had a mantra, you know?
Yeah.
I forgot I had an idea about what I wanted my life to be. So then we come back to it and you start it again and you do it again. You do the same thing, whatever it is. Now it's re-envisioned. You've got a little more life under your belt so you can be a little more clear. Can you be more clear about what your purpose is or what your vision is for your life or yourself? So my point being, life is going to distract us because that's what life does, inevitably.
That's the point.
So when it's those difficult times or when we find ourselves derailed, how quickly can we get back to our process
Mhm.
and our visualizing and our dreaming? You know, because that's really the driving beacon of our life, you know?
Yeah.
That's the priority of our life, is to fulfill that vision of our soul.
Yeah. Like I said before, I do think that there's a pull to it, where it's like that thing is
Totally.
is pulling us in a direction, and it is a part of that, like that expansion of everything.
Uh-huh.
I believe is literally the evolution of consciousness,
Yeah.
and that there's
I
a
love that.
version of us that's up ahead or there's something, our
Mhm.
consciousness up ahead of us that needs to pull us into it, and there's going to be steps along the way where we need to grow because we're not capable yet of being that until we become it.
Uh-huh. Those distractions in your life,
Mhm.
that's the battleground, dude, because
Yeah.
that's where you're gaining insight, you're gaining knowledge, you're gaining experience, you're growing, you're expanding through the doing. So that's an important part of it too. You know, you're gaining that acumen so that you can be more prepared to be
Mhm.
your highest, most free expression.
Yeah, that's like why all these different iterations of ourself matter, and that we can't just dump them and start over. It is like to transcend and include and bring all those parts of you, because you eventually realize down the road you need something that you had back then. You like you said before, like you can bring that warrior into now,
Exactly.
and you're so much more equipped for dealing with life, and like that fuels your growth just as much as all the aspects since then, or different things you've been through.
Yeah.
Oh,
1000%, bro.
yeah, this has been awesome. I don't want to take up too much of your time, so we can kind of wrap it up here a little bit. Thank you so much for coming on. Is there anything you want to kind of bring our attention to or promote, or anything you didn't say that you'd like to say?
I think that's about it, man. I mean, final words. Remember to breathe. Be gentle with yourself. Get good at allowing yourself to be human, because that's what you are. You know, until we evolve into the light beings, man, like this is where it starts, is getting really good with your humanity. And other than that, March 23 and 24, we've got our event Eben Flow in Wimberley, Texas. Registration is open for that. We're about half full. Super excited.
Throw that in the show notes so people can find it underneath.
That's awesome, dude. Yoga, breath work, ice tubs, incredible food, great supplements, and the best people. It'll be at a really fantastic little ranch just outside Austin, Texas, in Wimberley, in Hill Country. Super excited about that. That's March 23 and 24. So anybody interested, check that out. And that's about it, man. Appreciate you, Dan. I'm glad we got to do this finally.
Yeah, I appreciate you too. And this has been, like I said, I've really gotten a lot out of just watching your journey and watching how you developed. And it was awesome to finally get the chance to really connect today and talk about some deep stuff.
Yeah, bro.